So thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's really a big honor and pleasure for me to be here with you today to talk about this very important topic. So given the topic of the session, I thought I would start by telling you what brought me to to where I am, to decide to teach social entrepreneurship at the university. And in fact, this lead me back to my long-term memories of where I was still a student in my early studies in economics and in business administration, where most of my courses taught me the following: that workers are only driven by financial motives, that work is purely an exchange of time for money, and that the only goal of companies is to maximize profit. So basically, this was the message of most of my courses in econ or business administration. And this somehow, really, this view of human motivation really conflicted with my own experience, because I was not studying so hard because I was hoping to become rich or to make a lot of money in the future. I was studying so hard because I was hoping to really make a change, to bring a change in society. So I decided that this would be my mission, that I would try to change a bit the economics discipline and to introduce a new concept about humans' motivation, about the fact that workers are not only driven by money, but they are driven also in having an impact for society, in finding a meaning in their job. And this type of what I call motivated worker would not want to work for a standard company just to maximize the profit and enrich the shareholders, but would like to work for a company whose goal was to have a social impact. So what we call social entrepreneurship. And so this is how my journey started. And I mean, one of the, and this also developed in one of the course that I taught first at the University of Cologne, and now more recently at the University of Regensburg. And for your interest, I decided to share with you the syllabus to give you a rough idea about the topics that I'm covering in this course. So first, I typically introduce the subject, and this takes a while because social entrepreneurship is not so uniquely defined, and it's definitely a new concept. And then I devote more than three lectures to a more practice-oriented topic, namely on how to develop and test a startup idea, how to plan a social enterprise, and how to launch and scale a social enterprise. And here I used as reference book what you can see. Hello? And here I would continue, and I would focus the lecture on using this textbook on the right-hand side. So there are not many textbooks on social entrepreneurship, as some of you know, but I would definitely recommend this one, which is written by two professors from the business school at the University of Northwestern in the US. Then I would cover the topic of psychological biases as an obstacle to social change. I mean, to invite students to recognize how we are subject to media bias, which sometimes can make us take decisions that are not necessarily made in the interest of society. So somehow I also invite the student to make a lot of personal introspection of the motives that drive them. 6, and I think very important, I teach them about impact evaluation method. I mean, how can you be sure that your enterprise has a social impact? And so there I teach them some scientific method on how to evaluate the program. And finally, the last topic is on human resource management in social enterprise, how to motivate and attract talent in a social enterprise. And then I combine, this more theoretical approach with more practical studies. So we discuss many case studies, and I let students work in groups to come up with an ideas for a social business that then they have to pitch in a competition in front of a jury of experts. And then this will also determine part of their exam grade. And in addition to this, I actually even opened a YouTube channel to expand the knowledge of social entrepreneurship beyond my students, and where I try to make the social entrepreneurship concept more easily available to everybody. So if anybody's interested, you can also check this out. So now, you know, thinking when I decided to design this course, one question was, well, do I want to have a universal course, or should I just, you know, really focus on how social enterprise is done in Germany? And I thought, you know, from a legal perspective, every country has a different definition of social enterprise because legal systems are different. But I was more interested in, I was not really interested on how social enterprises are legally registered in a specific countries. I'm more interested in teaching what are the main criteria of a social enterprise, independently of whether at the end this is going to be registered as a non-profit or a for-profit. And I think these are four, I mean, there are different definitions of social enterprise, but I think these are the four criteria that are the most important for me. So the first one is that the social enterprise are organizations whose main or unique goal is to generate social impact, so to create society's well-being. The second important criteria is financial sustainability. I mean, a social enterprise is an organization that has to generate its own revenue and ideally even its own profit, which can then be reinvested at least in part in the organization. The third criteria, also very important, I believe, is innovation. So social enterprise provide a new solution to old problems. They use an entrepreneurial action to address social issues. And this innovation doesn't necessarily have to be technological. I mean, if you think about the great innovation of Mohamed Yunus, who was also one of the first promoters of social entrepreneurship, the idea, for example, to open the market of credit also to poor people, which before was thought totally that this would not be possible. It was very innovative, in my opinion. And so characterize this entrepreneurial view. And finally, social entrepreneurs are ambitious, so they do not only want to generate social impact for family and neighborhood, but they want to really have a potential for scale, so a program that can be replicated worldwide. And here I also thought I would give you an example of a German social enterprise, because one thing that I really want, a message that I really want to convey today, also in answering the question of this forum, is that social entrepreneurship is not only about developing countries or poorest countries. It's definitely a topic that has to be, that is very relevant in the most rich countries. Especially now with the I mean, all the issues with the environment and the climate change. And so I thought I would give you an example of Ecosia. Ecosia is a German social enterprise which is provide a search engine like a Google search. So actually, in fact, I would invite all of you to switch from Google search to Ecosia, because this search engine has the goal of fostering the plantation of trees worldwide. And how do they finance that? What is their business model? Well, as any search engine, Ecosia generates its profit through advertisement. But what do? They devote about 80% of their profit to their plantation of trees. And up to date, Ecosia has invested about 13 million euros into this planting tree project and has grown into a multi-million-dollar business. And they have planted more than 100 million trees by now. Another point that I really wanted to make in this presentation is I want to explain why I think that social entrepreneurship is really a revolutionary concept, also in economics, not only in business, and also relevant in the most rich countries. And this is what I typically explain to students. I mean, of course, I'm simplifying here, but hopefully will give you an idea. So traditionally, there have always been, I would say, pretty strong sectorial division. On the one hand, there is the mission sector, what I call the mission sector, whose goal is, to improve the society's well-being and to take care of the environment. And typically, its operators is the government, assuming it's a benevolent government, and charities. And on the other hand, you have the business sector, whose goal is traditionally has always been to make money. Now, I believe that this economic system and this sectorial division is extremely inefficient, because on the one hand, you have the companies who, that's great, they create growth, they increase technology, they create wealth, but at the same time, this often comes at the expenses, as we are experiencing now, of the environment and of social justice. So then you need the mission sector to somehow repair some of these damages. But the mission sector doesn't have their independent financial resources. They don't generate wealth. So they need to use the financial resources generated by the business sectors, for example, through taxation and donation, to repair some of the damages created by these same organizations. So I think social entrepreneurship is really revolutionary because it unifies these two otherwise divided sectors. Is a revolution for the business sector, because for the first time companies are not only interested in generating profit, but they are also interested and can apply their entrepreneurial and innovative knowledge to address the social and environmental issues. And it's an innovation for the mission sectors, because finally there are organizations who are interested in having social impact who can at the same time generate and rely on their own independent financial resources. And finally, to give you also an insight about why it is so innovative, the figure of the social enterprise can be so innovative, I want to give you an example. Let's talk about a typical social problem, health problem, which is hypothermia. Now, in the developing world, about 1 million of babies dies every year because of very preventable causes, including hypothermia, which means low body temperature. Now, again, I'm simplifying, but no, and let me also add, what is the problem is that traditional incubators that are available in most of the Western countries are pretty expensive. I mean, they cost about $20,000. So as you can imagine, poor hospitals in poor countries cannot afford those incubators. Now, again, taking a simplifying perspective, but what would be the typical answer of the common actors to this problem? How do we solve this problem? Well, the typical action of a government is, well, let's just subsidize the production of traditional incubators so that they can be sold for a cheaper price to the hospital, assuming that they have the technology to actually produce these incubators. The second approach, another approach taken by charities, is typically, well, let's just raise donation to buy traditional incubators that we can then transfer in these poor hospitals. What is the typical response of business? Well, business typically do not have a response to such a problem because they cannot make profit from the poor. What has been the answer given by the social enterprise Embrace, by the way, created by students? So I think this was very inspiring to know that at the university you can come up, students can come up with such innovative ideas. They created a low-cost infant warmer, like the one that you can see here in the picture, which is like a sleeping bag, where you can put your baby and keep him warm. And this costs about 1% of the price of a traditional incubator. So we're talking about $200. Now, what is the business model of Embrace? So Embrace has two branches, a profit branch, which sells these low-cost infant warmers to the poorest hospital in the world that can still afford them. And then for each infant warmer sold, the profit branch sends a royalty to the non-profit branch, which then distributes this low-cost infant warmer to the poorest hospital, which cannot even afford to buy these infant warmers. So I think this example is very clearly show the power of social entrepreneurship. Finally, to come back to the original, to the original question of this forum, is training in social entrepreneurship a universal need? And here I really want to have to think with all of you on this topic. So I believe that our job as professors is not only to teach our students methodology and techniques or to convey them information, but also to generate and promote a culture. So I believe that the business and economics culture, the business and economics education are the root of the business culture. So the value and the norms that student absorbs in the business course will then be transferred into the business world. So if we teach our students that entrepreneurship and business are mainly about making money, like I was taught when I was young, we will generate workers and business leaders who will only be motivated by the financial pay. And they, in turn, will build organizations that only strive for profit at the expenses of the environment and of social justice. So To answer the question of the forum today, I want to say that training in social entrepreneurship is much more than a universal need. It's in fact a universal duty. I'm done. Thank you for your attention.